Welcome to the Microsoft Security Insights Show. The show streams live every Wednesday on YouTube, Twitch, LinkedIn, and Twitter, and streamed directly into your ear the following Friday across all popular podcast networks. Hosted by Edward Walton, Andrea Fisher, Rod Trent, and Brody Castle, the Microsoft Security Insights Show provides information, news, and tips on Microsoft security solutions.
Recorded May 3rd, 2023. But good afternoon, Andrea. Good afternoon, Brody. How are you doing?
Awesome. Sun's shining. The hockey team's out, but that's okay. That was, that's too bad. But a lot of other major teams in the NHL got kicked out, like the Bruins. So that's pretty hilarious.
The Bruins. So
the greatest NHL team of all time by points was knocked out by the 8th seed in what is now the greatest comeback of all time in the playoff, because they beat them in Game 7 overtime, and they were down. They were down like 3-1. It's insane. It's super newsworthy. So I won't harp on hockey talk too much, but that was insane. That was insane.
What did you do interesting this week, Brody?
I am working on the coolest blank ever right now. We're just looking to kick off how we can ensure that Canada can interop with the other Five Eyes and NATO countries as part of treaty obligations by leveraging the Microsoft Zero Trust Framework and the Department of Defense Zero Trust Framework. I'm having a security nerd moment. It's pretty much the coolest thing I've ever done. And we're just on the precipice of getting it going. And that's why I was late, because I had to have one of those conversations. Mm-hmm. So everything else I'm doing is okay compared to that. Once this gets going, it's going to be like a career highlight for me. So that's I got a lot of reading to do, put it that way.
Well, it sounds super cool, Brody.
It's already been done before, Brody. That's the way the world, global powers have been doing each other, with zero trust, pointing guns and weapons at each other the whole time.
Right.
That's a totally different kind of zero trust.
Different. Oh, okay. I don't know. I'm not smart, man. Andrew, what about you?
Well, I am, as I say here, counting down the days to vacation. Just a programming reminder, neither Edward nor I will be here next Wednesday because we will both be on vacation separately but together, strangely. We will be meeting up in Prague for beverages, just coincidentally, so that'll be cool.
That's crazy.
I know. Just that it was the same time, same place, but we must have been...
We've been friends too long and think too much alike. Because I thought I was telling her, I was like, "Guess what, Andrew?" She's like, "No, guess what?" I was like, "I'm going on vacation. I'm going to go here. I'm going on vacation too. I'm going to Prague.
Oh my goodness!
So it's all right. It'd be a good time.
That's cool. I've never been. One day I'll go.
Yeah, Andrew, you break anything cool this week?
Well, I was going to share one tidbit of news that might be going under the radar, and hopefully nobody listening on this has an on-premises Exchange server.
Yeah, who does that?
If you do, there are still people out there. If you do, we are changing some behaviors. We are going to begin first with reporting that you have vulnerable Exchange servers. Then we're going to throttle traffic, and then we're going to block traffic. So if you have on-prem Exchange servers, please make sure they are up to date.
Wow. Well, that's important that we're making those alerts, because significant vulnerabilities and exploits have been occurring on the on-prem Exchange world for a while. And let me just tell you, I have worked a bunch in my career on on-prem Exchange. So when you get over to Microsoft and everything's cloud, it's like, oh yeah, this is great. And then these things come up and it's like, oh man, who's still running this? This is bad. You need to move.
If you're running an Exchange on premise and you're not patching, you're asking for it, you're vulnerable, and then you're probably a launch point for web shell attacks and stuff like that. And but the bigger question, and then sometimes it's Exchange servers, they're not even you're using email. I saw someone still trying to use it as the SMTP relay or fax, pull through, and I'm like, but those are generally customers that are underserved anyway. Healthcare,
right?
Education, you don't have the money, have the skill set. So, but sometimes you have to you force people to take their vitamins and eat their vegetables and do exercise, right? You gotta do behavior.
Right. I was just telling my mom about that yesterday. It's like, well, there's no time to restart like tomorrow, Mom.
Mm-mm.
So, Andrea, if we could share that, get that link and share that in
Yeah,
the chat
sure,
or share it in the
absolutely.
show notes, that'd be swell. And I had some notes too, but you know what? We started a bit late, all because of me. So maybe we'll just kick into our guests if that works. Edward, do you have anything you want to add before we get going, my friend?
Architecting with price as the main consideration. I architect a solution that takes data from one place and runs it through Cribble that runs it through another sim and then sends it or try to send the Sentinel. Andrea and I talked about it. She heard me vent and rant, but I'm good.
Cool.
Nothing interesting.
Well,
Fourth
that
quarter,
sounds
man.
complicated. I'm glad we have our best Edward on the case for that.
And on that note,
And on
let's get our guest who's been sitting in the green room drinking up all our free virtual beer and virtual snacks, Richard.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's add Richard, Mia, and
Mia
Olivia.
and Olivia.
Welcome.
to the show.
Hello. Nice to be back. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Nice to meet y'all.
So, Richard, how are you doing?
Doing good, thank you. Yeah, I've been watching your shows, keeping up. Couldn't wait to get back on again. So this time I thought I would bring my friends and introduce you to Mia and Olivia that I get to work with every day, which is fantastic.
Olivia and Mia, Richard's your friend, so does he let you talk on meetings, or does he just talk the whole meeting? I need to know.
Oh, we learn so much from our wonderful Richard Diver. We learn so much. We're just sponges around
Right.
Richard's deep technical aptitude and Brody passion for built-in security and foundational security. Okay, we love ourselves some Richard.
Absolutely. Our team would not be the same without him. I'll tell you, I would not. I'm new to Microsoft. I've been here about a year, so I certainly wouldn't know as much as I do at this point without Richard. So
we're talking about the same guy. Evidently the Cash App went through. I mean,
I was about to say he paid us on the side. So
yeah.
Richard is so awesome, and he is the okay. No, he's great. He's one of our earlier guests on the show. Different role, very accommodated for us to come on. We kept in touch. He's definitely helped me out with some partner stuff in the past that I had to just track the right people down, right?
And now marketing got him. We snagged him now. We took him.
Okay. Let's start off the show this way. I know the names Olivia, Mia, like Mama Mia, and Richard.
Yeah.
Intro of who you are, what team that you're on, and what you do, and no particular order. So M comes before O. So Mia, we'll start with you.
Okay. Hello, Mia Reyes. Nice to meet all of you. I've been with Microsoft going on 5 years now. I get to work on this fabulous team with my dear friends and colleagues, Richard and Olivia, and we are the built-in security, foundational security team for Microsoft. So we are, I think you actually had our CVP on a couple of episodes ago. I got to see you guys interview Vasu Jakal, our CVP for security compliance. And we can't talk, I don't know Star Trek like her, you guys, but I know you guys spent like 15 minutes going deep on that.
Oh yeah. There's been more since then, Mia. I mean, if you haven't seen Picard season 3, I mean, oh my God, yeah. Right.
I was having to Google some stuff on the side, but we sit in Vasu's world on the SCI team, and so our team. We'll talk to you a little bit more about what we do, but our high-level nutshell, our elevator speech, is we get to evangelize and talk about the built-in security story for the company. So secure by default, secure by design, MFA, all of those things across Azure and Windows and M365. Our team gets to talk about the capabilities, talk about the story. And we're a thought leadership team in a lot of ways. And I will talk about my role, then I'll pass it on to Olivia. But I get to do narrative and messaging and kind of like the BDM, the business decision maker, ITDM storytelling. And Richard kind of does some of the technical side. So I'm the narrative and the storyteller on that. Olivia?
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys. So I've been at Microsoft about a year, and actually our team has been around about a year as well. So it's really cool to like join Microsoft as a new person, but also on this like new team that we're building, which it's been super cool. So I'm the customer journey lead, which basically means that I do audience marketing. So my job is to understand like who are we talking to, what are their needs and pain points, and then ultimately like what does Microsoft solve for them. and then communicating to them like throughout all of our different channels and all that. So I mean, I say like I love this job because I get to do things I love, which is learn stuff, learn a lot of stuff, like I said, from Richard, just about our products, from all that. I get to help people strategize and solve problems. So I'm just always trying to figure out like, okay, what is our audience need? Like, what channels do they live in? How do we deliver the best message to them in the right way at the right time, essentially? So
Awesome.
Okay.
Welcome.
Yeah.
And
These are
last
the
but
two
not
that are-
least, Mr. Diver.
these are the two that are teaching me how to do marketing. So, as you know, I've got a technical background. I've been out in the field, been in Brody and Edward's shoes before, doing the thing, and now I'm in marketing. I have to have this sounding board of like, hey, I've got this idea, and I have a few of them, and they listen to it and say, let's talk about it like this. So it's just trying to translate my brain into something that people can actually read. So yeah. It's been good. It's been good. Currently, our focus and priorities, because we're just talking about the new year's coming up, so we're planning for developer security as a hot topic. A lot of work to be done there. Looking forward to going to build soon, a couple of weeks' time. And quantum is going to be a thing. So quantum computers and how that impacts security. We're looking forward to doing that one. And then AI. I mean, if you don't know what's going on in AI, then you're probably not in IT today. So it's one of them. You can ignore it as long as you like, but eventually it's going to come and catch up to you. So we try to stay ahead of the game and worry about the things that are going to be the next news article and the next problem for people.
Well, what's so interesting about AI is it is really, so I don't know if anybody's paying attention, but the Hollywood writers are on strike right now, not all, but some of it based around, the thought that AI may start taking over writing some scripts, or at least, turn them more into gig workers and things like that.
Yeah.
So it is really touching every single, corner of the world.
Yeah. And that movie is a great example because with the quality of movies that are coming out, you could definitely look at the previous movies and the sequel and tell it, reference those and write me part 4 to John Wick,
Right.
part 5 to John Wick, right? Do it for you.
Fast and Furious 12.
Fast
or
and the
whatever
Furious.
they're
Yeah,
on.
I was just thinking that.
Get a car and do stuff the cars can't do.
Yeah.
So
Well, I was just going to say, well, this was more fun, Edward. Have you guys sort of on the AI, this is a slight tangent, but you talked about movies. Have you guys seen what's happening in the music industry similarly, where they're feeding a bunch of artists songs and then an indistinguishable song basically is created? You give a whole catalog of the Beatles, they can, an AI program can essentially make a Beatles track in the same way. So it's happening. I think it's
there's like a fake song by The Weeknd and someone else. Yeah.
That you could, you honestly would not be able to tell. So that was my only, now non-security related, but it's just fascinating, Andrea, like what you're saying, what's happening.
We love tangents, Mia. It's all good.
That is the bane of the show. I'm not worried about AI. AI can't spit rhymes like me and Brody. We'll get right there, just like that.
Okay.
So we know who you are. We know what your roles are in there, and then you hit on a couple of subjects. But I'm trying to figure out, when you're telling a security story, you're telling a journey, and then you're convincing, Richard, that this is how we should say it, or Richard comes back and say, how should we do this? How does that translate to something that's deliverable to a customer? And are you customer specific, or are you just telling a story to the world? This is Microsoft's perspective on security. How does that work? And whomever wants to fill the question, how do you get your goodness out to the customers?
Olivia? I'll start with actually your second question, which is like essentially how do you know like who you're talking to, and that's my whole role. So in terms of like how do we get it out to a customer, first we have to figure out like who the heck are they, right? Like what's happening in their brains, but also like what's happening in the market, like what's their context right now. And then that's how we figure out, like that's how Mia figures out how to like message. That's how Richard figures out which products and which features to pull from which products that are secure by design and all of that good stuff. So I would say from an audience perspective, there's two things. Like to understand them, you got to ask people, like ask them what they need, but then you also have to kind of like look at their behavior. And so on the asking side, it's pretty easy. Like we have amazing research teams within Microsoft that we sort of go to source like, all right, what are security pros thinking right now? Like, what are BDMs, or which are business decision makers? What are IT pros? Like, what are all these people thinking right now based on like what's happening around them? So, and also news scanning, like for us to figure out what actually is like happening around them. So that's like, that's one leg of it, but then also talking to customers directly, which a lot of times, we get that information from our sellers and from the field, who are like all day, every day, like talking to customers and trying to figure out like what's happening for them. But then the second thing is looking at people's behavior, because people say one thing and do another, right? Like I am people. Like I will say one thing and do another thing the very next day. So, for example, I also work on some of Microsoft Security's events. So getting people to those events. So we just had like Microsoft Secure and so getting registrations for that, I help with that. So, just in terms of like people say one thing and do another, we might see, with events or really anything, like, for example, you might see that, our posts on social are doing really well, which is an indicator of interest. Like people are really liking it. They're commenting, oh my gosh, want to come to this event. But if our registrations aren't then lining up with that, like we have to ask, like, are we missing something? Did we miss what our audience actually wants? Like they sound interested, but then maybe like the messages that we're providing them after that aren't really landing. And so that's a sign to go back and like look at more data, ask questions about like, okay, did people feel misunderstood, or, were they interested in one session but not another, and use all of that to sort of like tweak again our delivery. So
cool.
Yeah, Mia, cool. Richard, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
That's a customer journey 101, you guys.
Yeah.
you got the expert. Well, nobody asked for the expert.
Let me ask an Ed question, which is sort of duh. What is the actual name of your group, your team?
We went backwards and forwards on this a lot.
Yeah, we did.
It's the foundational security, and it was basically on the idea that anything, Microsoft has a lot of products and we have a lot of security products. It's like nothing matters if the foundations you build your house on aren't solid. And so that's really what our team's remit is are we as Microsoft doing the right thing to make sure that Azure is secure, Windows is the best it can be. Like at every stage, everything should already be secure. And then everything we sell on top of that and everything we offer to customers on top of that should be security built in and built secure from the start. So foundational security is what we came down to.
I like that. Yeah. That's a good name. Edward, you got another question?
Yeah, just one more. Something that Richard said. You're saying being secure as it can be, making sure that the product goes out as resilient and as hardened as it can. You didn't actually say those words. That sounds like a phrase that people go, security by design, security by default. Is that what you're trying to get at?
Yeah. Yes.
That's it. Yeah. When we built this team, that wasn't the coined term, but that is now the coined term. So yeah, the secure by design is shift left, as in start securing this stuff as you're writing the code. Stop shipping it and then patch it later, which, everybody in the software industry is like, I need to get this thing out there because it's really cool. And security comes afterwards. And so it's not just Microsoft, but the whole industry has been shifting towards shift left, making it more secure. But secure by default is really harder, because if you think Windows needs to come out secure, and it is today, if you go and install Windows 11, turn it on, you're going to get free antivirus, you're going to get phishing protection built in, you get anti-ransomware capabilities built in. It's like someone put it as like airbags in a car. That's just table stakes today. But Windows is way more complicated than that. The customers need it to work the way they want it to work. And so they will either remove or add additional security features, however they want to add that. So we're really just championing to make sure at every stage we're saying, do this whole secure thing. Yeah.
What a future we're in where we can say Windows is secure by default. I grew up in 95 and 98, and it was not that way back in the day. Let's just call it that. So that's amazing.
Well, that's what we're doing. We are out there getting to evangelize and tell these amazing stories of our products. And a lot of the work that's happened since Brody, when we're feeling like that, I'm like, look at all these amazing things, how far we've come on this journey of, and we have a million names, you guys. We are secure by design, we're secure by default, we're embedded security, out of the box security, foundational. These are all synonyms for us. So whenever you hear those terms thrown around, that's this team. That's the foundational built-in security team.
Well, secure by default's interesting. A comment and a question. Secure by default's interesting because on our projects, I'm a consultant, and in our projects, we now have secure by default built into each of our project engagements. So whether it's just handling customer data correctly, or ensuring that the code that we're supplying for an app refactor is in fact meeting security standards, or designing secure infrastructure, like there's a whole component now that never used to exist as part of our consulting engagements, where it's required on every deal that we're going to have a separate dedicated element of the team just scrutinizing and making sure that we're checking all the boxes, we're reducing risk as much as possible. And I think it's an extremely important mentality shift. And I think our customers see that, like we're leading with security. We obviously want to meet your outcomes, everything you want out of the engagement, but it's going to be secure. We're not going to, or you're going to have to accept the risk, right? If there's something that comes up and we feel like it's not secure, you've got to either accept it or we got to mitigate it, but we're going to call it out no matter what. And ideally, we get to a point where everything is secure by default.
So what is one Windows security feature that you wish people would take advantage of that has not been as popular as we would like it to be?
My favorite one is getting rid of passwords. So Windows Hello,
Right.
I don't know what my password. I actually don't have a password at Microsoft anymore. So I just look at my laptop and it logs me in. And if I need to, I have my phone and it has Authenticator on it. Just get rid of passwords. That's my favorite one that I think. MFA has been my thing to talk about for 10 plus years, and there's still companies not doing MFA. So I'm gonna call out that one. Right.
Yeah.
You got any? I don't know.
Richard's got, Richard is our guy. He's going to hit you with all the technical capabilities that you want. How many do you want, though? You got to limit it.
Well, not everyone, but he's giving one. If you were telling us to, it sounds like you have to look both ways at the same time, because if you're trying to convince people that to do the right thing, the customer stuff seems to be a no-brainer. But if you're talking about secure design, it gives me the impression that you have to work with engineer in the product group. How do you handle convincing them that when you ship this, it needs to be this way, right? Because how do you handle that? That seems to be, if you had hair, mine would be gray, trying to mess with engineering to convince them to make this default setting on as soon as the customer delivers this. Is that a hard, thing to do, Mia?
We have been we have had a fantastic partnership, particularly with our Azure engineering team, and we have been getting to work with some really fabulous engineers who I think totally get what our team is pushing for and completely understand that this is not necessarily, an easy thing, especially we have a lot of legacy ways of doing things, and sometimes we do great things, but we're not telling the story, right? And so I think that's what we're trying to do. But yeah, I mean, our team is definitely in there with the engineering teams, thinking through, looking at competitors, looking at what competitors are offering and saying, hey, competitors are doing this now, like this is something that would make us more competitive, and or this would be incredibly valuable for customers if we did this. And so we have these great relationships that we are building and continuing to build in the company. And, is it easy? No, but because it's a big, gigantic company, right? Like it's mostly just because we're one of the biggest companies in the world. And when we do any sort of changes, whether it's like recommending something BMFA, like we talked about earlier, like sometimes these things are so much easier said than done. Mm-hmm. Right? Like the ramifications of something, that seems really, really simple, like turn it on, everything on by MFA. No, it's easy, right? Yeah. Like the reality of seeing that actually where a customer is like, oh my gosh, this thing broke, or this thing, I can't do this every week, or whatever it is. They're just bigger than I think sometimes that you see. So, but I will say, like, our team is in there with engineering and trying to explain the validity. And I don't think they need to, we don't have to sell them very hard. I think as Microsoft, everybody really understands how important it is. I think our team is really trying to like get out there and talk about it more. And sometimes we're a little shy of talking about these things. And so we're trying to be the ones like, you guys, come on, like, tell us your awesome stories. Let's go out there and like, let's evangelize.
Yeah. And I just want to add to that, to your point, Ed, and also to the link that you guys shared in the chat. Like, it isn't hard to convince engineering to like build things securely. Like that's literally what they're there for. Like we work with the Azure security engineering team, and they are some of like the best partners we had, and that's who we worked with to put out that blog that you put in the chat. So we've got a whole series on Azure's defense in depth approach to security, like how we build security into Azure and how we're constantly trying to improve in that. Because like we're never going to be perfect. Nobody's ever going to be perfect. But like, what are we doing every time to like learn every second, every day to learn and like improve our security out of the box? And like, they've been the most amazing partners. They come to us now with stuff and they're like, hey, did you know we're doing this? Like, can you do something on that? And like, that's the best type of relationship we can have. So.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. That blog post is a series of 4. We've got the first 2 out, and then we're going to get the next 2 out soon. But there's things like, do not variant hunting is.
Do y'all want to say for our listeners, because our listeners can't see the link, do you want to say the title of the blogs?
The link is the title of the blogs is called Azure Defense in Depth, and it's about our approach to cloud-based vulnerabilities. So we want to know about Windows and applications and patching. But when it happens in the cloud, the problem you have is it can be fixed without you knowing about it, and the problem can occur without you knowing about it. So it's a bit of a dark art as to understand if it's happening in Azure or any of the other clouds out there. They all have software vulnerabilities or configuration problems. And is it a Microsoft problem or is it a customer problem? So this blog series is to try to address that and explain. Again, think about the audience, not too technical, but links in there if you want to dig in deeper and explaining the approaches they're taking that as Azure grows and you want to run things like open source databases in a multi-tenant environment. That piece of software wasn't designed to run in a multi-tenant environment. So how do you put it into something like Azure to allow customers to have access to it at scale, but also keep it secure and protected? And there's a lot of very clever and awesome security researchers out there that love to just find every little hole they can try to find. And now and again, they're successful. Not very often, but when they are, it can make headlines. And so we had to come out and talk about this. And again, like me and Olivia was saying, once you tap into the right people at Microsoft and they're too busy doing the work, but when you say, hey, just step back a minute and talk about this, they can't wait to share their stories.
So this question goes across everyone. I'll start with Ms. Armstrong and we'll work our way left to right.
Yeah.
It seems like the breadth of products and solutions and initiatives is so broad. And if you listen to the new show, the old shows, you'll get this term. How do you manage the new shiny? Because the new shiny right now is secure DevOps and AI. And if I had to go Vapor products, specific security Copilot, how do you manage? Because are you scope or is it everything? And I'll start with you, Olivia.
Oh yeah, it's a great question. I feel like we spent the first 3 months of our team trying to figure out oh my God, we go across everything. Like built-in security is literally everything at Microsoft. So how are we going to narrow it down? And so again, it really kind of goes back to the audience research. Like what do people need right now? And so in terms of managing the new shiny, a lot of times the shiny thing is shiny because that is what actually people need and what they want to hear about. And so we manage the shiny by tapping into it, so Mia and Richard mentioned, we will be talking about AI, we will be talking about secure DevOps and those things because they are top of mind. But then there's other elements that we'll go into that maybe aren't so shiny. We, our audience research this year, we kind of refresh it every year. But, we found that there's a particular industry where we need to sort of dive in and play a little bit more in that area and talk to them about how the solutions that we've designed for them are secure out of the box. Whereas our first year, we were industry agnostic. We didn't really focus on an industry because again, it's everything. Every industry uses Microsoft. But so we touch on the shiny stuff, but then our research also tells us where else we need to focus, what's top of mind for this group of people over here that may not be the big shiny thing across the whole tech industry.
So Mia, within that whole big breadth of things that you do, and now that you are sometimes industry and or vertical, focus, do you find yourself having favorites within the products that you have to go out and analyze and or industries? I mean, because I know what my favorite product is. And,
yeah. I mean, I will say there are certain teams that we love the stories of their built-in security stories, they do so great at it. And Windows actually is a really great example of that. Like the Windows team and the partnership with Windows has been fantastic. And they are out there and they are really leading, I think as a lot of us know, with security. Windows 11, like they're leading with that and explaining in very simple terms, right? Like I also feel like the Windows marketing team does a great job of just like really doing like high level customer messaging of like, this is why, and I don't remember the statistics off the top of my head, but we can find them. Like the new Windows 11 is like X% more secure than any other Windows that we've ever seen, right? And
I hope so.
Yeah,
58% drop in security incidents.
What is it, Olivia?
With Windows, 58% drop in security incidents with Windows just by switching to Windows 11.
Okay.
So they've, go ahead.
Let's
Big
say it.
number.
Like let's live on that, right?
That's
Like
huge.
that's huge. That's massive. And they are so good about like getting out there and leading with that. And so I think to your question, like who do we love it when our product partners are out there and helping make our job easier. I will just say like just the industries that I love working in, this is completely, I'm just biased because I used to work in foreign policy. So
Cool.
when I first came to Microsoft, my job was actually working in government and doing government go-to-market and doing public sector. And then I switched to defense. So I love working with the public sector. I love that world. And as we all know, like government and security and cybersecurity is a huge, huge topic with government agencies right now, both in the United States and abroad. And so for me, it's just something that I love when those two worlds get to intersect. And that gets to happen a little bit more and more with me now.
So Richard, now that everybody at Microsoft knows that you are the Microsoft influencers of a sort, how do you manage the product and engineering groupies that say, talk about my stuff? Oh, we just released something. You need to talk about my stuff more. How do you prioritize? Oh, he says, Brody's like the money. Show me the way.
Cupcakes.
Cupcakes.
You know, when you talk about like the complexity, we want them to tell us. Like that's actually one of the problems is finding it out. Because we're so complex, it's really hard to say, well, what is everyone working on? There's mechanisms inside of marketing, as I'm learning, where it is really well tracked and it's organized and coordinated. But the things we're working on is the stuff that isn't money orientated, right? It's not trying to sell a product. It's not a thing people are necessarily excited about, but it's for us, it's a necessary thing that we have to. So we're proactively reaching out to these groups, including companies like GitHub that we are working with. And then if you think from developer security perspective, you've got Visual Studio on Windows or Mac using GitHub to get into Azure DevOps that's then protected by Defender for Cloud, which is then launched on Azure, AWS, GCP, or on-prem. So across just one conversation of developer security, you've got 7, 8 different places you have to go and have these conversations. And they all have their own marketing teams that they should actually do marketing through. We're just trying to highlight and elevate and talk about specifically the bits that are free, built in, not extras. So yeah, it's a fun challenge. I have a whole map of it's called the Matrix, the security matrix that helps track and plan and find all this stuff.
Cool.
Who do you go ahead, Brody?
So Richard and I get to talk once in a while because he's helping mentor me internally, so it's great to have him back on the show. And I got to say, like, I just find your role highly interesting. How you get to be a thought leader and you're taking what's top of mind from customers and from industry. So do we have like an internal brain trust of people like yourselves that we get together like, hey, we're going to talk about AI, we're going to talk about Copilot, we're going to talk about quantum. Let's put our heads together and start developing this from the ground up. Like, how does that start? What does that look like internally? And then people like Olivia and Mia help amplify and broadcast, if I'm understanding the roles and correctly here. I just love to understand how you start off that process and how it goes along its path in order to reaching our customers and our partners.
Yeah, I'll start and then Mia and Olivia, I'll let you amplify it. I've got to say hi to David Brody, another good friend who's just chatted on the chat window. Say hi, thanks for calling in. And Brody, it's great working with you as well. We'll talk about what we're doing together on the blogs later. But what happens generally is we look at things like news articles and trends in the industry, or I'll just pick up on AI back in August last year before it dropped in October, and ChatGPT. You just hear about it and you know it might be coming. And so you kind of put your nose over the fence and have a look, like quantum is coming. And so you get an intuition that, hey, maybe this might be a thing and we should look at it. One of them that hasn't come to fruition yet would be the gaming industry and security in the gaming industry. So I'll go look at it. I'll do a precursory, is that something that needs help? And if it is, we'll jump in and try to help out. And if it's not, I'll back off and go on to some other project. I'm like a squirrel. I can just, or a dog looking for a squirrel. I can just go wherever I need to go. And then as I feed those ideas up, I feed lots of ideas out. And then me and Olivia catch them basically and say, all right, that one sounds like it aligns to something that Vasu could talk about. And so then I have that funnel of like a sounding board, and then I go back to doing my research.
Oh, okay.
Mia, how do you take the flood of ideas that I give you?
Yes. No, I mean that's a great way to put it. Like I feel like our team is so interesting and unique in our makeup. And again, like this truly horizontal can be applied in almost anywhere, any platform, any part of the company. And so it kind of even goes back to like your original question, Edward, where it's like, how do you guys even, you can do it all. Like how do you choose the thing versus like what's just shiny and what's a real thing? And I think for us, trying to be very data driven in addition to trying to also see the trends, right? So I like having somebody like Richard who's out there and just reading and doing it, and all of us are, we're like, you know, we're going to the events and we're reading all of the things, but then having like a very clear set of metrics of what we view as success, right? And for us, it's like, how are we shifting certain perceptions? We want ultimately the thing that our team is going for and what we're trying to do is when we ask customers, do you think Microsoft builds secure products? Do you think Microsoft deploys and delivers secure products? We want the answer to always be getting higher and higher and higher. Yes, that's like how we view success. And so everything kind of always will fall back to, you know, our success metrics, like the trend lines that we're following, a lot of the audience work that Olivia is looking at as to like, where do we need to have the most improvements, right? Because a lot of times our focus will be there, like, oh, this group is like, you know, maybe something happened in this industry that, you know, we need to kind of evangelize to them a little bit more. But I think for us being, you know, trying to be very data driven and having a very core set of ways that we're measuring success and measuring how people are perceiving the security of Microsoft products is what the big driver is.
That's cool. That's cool.
And I'll just add to that, like the data is both qualitative and quantitative, right? So like we'll look at the numbers, like how many X% of people agree that we're a secure company. But then, you know, when we look at the nuances of those, we'll go to other teams internally, back to your question about like how do you even like do this stuff? Like there's a lot of collaboration. We'll go to teams and say, hey, we saw this in the data, but like you give me your take on that because you're closer to it than we are, especially since we're a team that goes all the way across everything. We're kind of like a jack of all trades team. Like we're not quite experts on anything. Like we kind of have to like be a jack of all trades on all the things and then defer to the experts. So I will say, you know, like, you know, even just in my like first year and some change here, like that's a big thing that I've learned is like, oh, okay, you have to go talk to the people who really know this stuff. There's people that are usually closer to the thing, and then there's probably people even closer to the thing. So like make sure you're collaborating like with all of them to make sure we have the full picture.
Thank you all.
Are you generally well received when you go to these groups, you know, unsolicited? Do you go and say, well, I'm Olivia Armstrong, a reporter for the Daily Planet, and we like to talk about this, right? What is there? How does everybody at Microsoft know about you guys? I mean, do the engineering teams like
almost? We're getting there.
Yeah, you could
Yeah.
drop your name and they'll go, oh yeah, sure, we'll make time. You do that. So
They'll know them now that they're on the show, right, Edward?
Right, exactly.
Right.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
there you go.
I mean, I feel like we've been very well received. I don't know, me and Richard can add to this, but I feel like every time we've like, especially in this first year, like every time we've gone to a team and said, hey, we talk about built-in security, we talk about what we do that's secure out of the box, they're like, oh my gosh, wait, like we have all this stuff, like, but we didn't know that was like a way to talk about it, or you know, they just never kind of viewed it that way or didn't have the bandwidth, like whatever, to get those stories out. And so generally speaking, people are like, oh yeah, please, we have built-in secure stuff that we want you to talk about. And then like our job is to collect that across all of our products and like tell the highest level story. You know, they're experts in all of their built-in security things from their products. But I feel like I feel like people love us, but I'm probably biased.
That's all.
Yeah, yeah.
Andrew, you got a question?
Well, you know, I would just
I'll
say
just giving you an opportunity because like I talk a lot.
Yeah, me and you do the same. Andrea, just before you do, because I will hand back to you, but the one thing I would say is that we are like a little bit like news reporters. And so everyone, if you think I'm from marketing, this is why I put my title as like technical story design. It gives me a little bit of an extra credibility that I know I'm from marketing, but I kind of understand what you're talking about in a way that it allows them to kind of lower their defenses a bit. People in security in general don't like to share their stuff, and they don't like talking to marketing and sales and stuff. They just want to do security. And so there is a skill to develop in getting into these teams, and I encourage them. But the most of it is about how we're not going to share just because you're talking to marketing, and we're just going to go share everything straight on the internet and tell everybody all your dirty secrets. But trying to find that safe path for them to be able to voice it or get them up on stage. That's another hard one. Do you know how many introverts and shy people we have that might have been working at Microsoft under the hood for a long time, and they don't want to get on stage and talk about it. So then we have to find a way to get their stories shared in a way, maybe without the person actually doing it themselves.
Okay. So sometimes they don't. You're offering a platform, but maybe they're hesitant, and that could come down to personalities. So maybe there's an intermediary where we can still get the story out without having to expose the individual. That's fair. Yeah. We welcome all kinds of people at Microsoft. There's all kinds of personality types. I'm the opposite of that. I'm Mr. Flap on the camera. So it's a lot different for me.
I was just going to say, and maybe that's the difference between maybe the people that are actually out there, you know, building the products. I've never met a single person at Microsoft who wasn't thrilled to talk either about themselves or the Microsoft products.
It's a prerequisite, right?
We get screened for it before, yeah.
So as we get down to the last, section of the show, I worked with Richard, in some form or fashion, and then he decided to go to the dark side. He left technical and went over there, right? At least he didn't go to sales. I've been done with him. So we'll go to him last. Olivia, how did you end up here? Tell me how you ended up with this job. What got you here?
Oh man. So before this job, I was at a small agency in Boston. When I say small, like I was employee number 4, and I had been there 7 years, and then we were 12. So quite the opposite of like the massive Microsoft machine. But I kind of just wanted to try the corporate thing. Like, hey, what is it like to be on the client? I've been on the agency side. What's it like to be on the client side? I previously was in healthcare tech, and I always liked the tech side of that specifically. So I was like, hey, let me go try this. So I was super happy to land in this position. I really love like building new things. The agency that I joined, like I said, I was employee number 4, so I kind of helped over time, just like the agency build and like create processes and things like that. So joining a fresh team, I love it. Like we're trying to figure out what the heck is foundational security? Like, what does that mean? Like, what does that mean for each of our different product leaders? How are they actually like building this stuff? So anything that's like brand new, I love to help build stuff. So it was just like the perfect position for me. And then, the transition to cybersecurity has been interesting too. I was in healthcare. So like I said, I really learn a lot from from Richard, from our engineering partners, all of that. I mean, healthcare and security are similar in that they're both like highly regulated, lots of sensitive information. Like there's a lot of overlap there. And it was also, like I said, B2B. But it's been very cool to learn about like, it really is industry agnostic. Like, how do we keep every industry safe, not just healthcare? Like, how do we keep literally everybody safe? Because I feel like everybody uses a Microsoft product. So it's been cool.
Awesome.
Ms. Reyes, how did you end up in the big house?
Oh my goodness.
Biggest house.
How did I end up in the big house? Well, I had a lot of different careers. So I used to work in the music business. So I live in Seattle. I was a radio DJ, and then I worked for a bunch of record labels, large record labels like Sub Pop, did international media for them. So Sub Pop had Nirvana, sort of one of our big claims to fame. But then I worked for smaller independent labels. Then I transitioned, did nonprofit work, and was executive director for several nonprofits. And then I was like, you know what, let me do something new. And then I went into foreign policy. So I was doing foreign policy and international trade. That was the job that I was doing before Microsoft. So many lives lived before I came to the big house. I came to Microsoft, like I mentioned, I was doing government work. So, government or Microsoft was sort of interested in me because I was working in foreign policy, and they said, hey, we're trying to build these government marketing teams, government, you want to come join us? I thought it would be an amazing opportunity to do something different. So then I came to Microsoft doing government, but I will say cybersecurity was new to me. And this is, I kind of want to hit this point home because I don't know if I think a lot of your listeners and viewers are probably going to be sort of deeper technical cybersecurity specialists. But I am not somebody who comes from this world. And it's been interesting for me to sort of see that there's so many other opportunities within cybersecurity, like getting to work on thought leadership, getting to work on the kind of marketing that I'm doing, and not super deep technical specialists like a Richard. And so I was really interested in coming into this industry of cybersecurity. And I had also been reading, and I know you guys, I'd listened to your episodes where you're doing, Women in Cybersecurity Month, just about the massive shortage of women in cybersecurity and the opportunities for women. And when this role came up, I was like, wait, it's a thought leadership role in this world of, or in this sort of industry that is kind of grappling with trying to get more women in cybersecurity in the most defensible spend that any company has when times are good and times are bad. Like people, and companies are still investing in cybersecurity. So I thought, gosh, this would be a really interesting pivot for me. And I found myself here talking built-in security with all of you guys. So I'm very happy.
You said the huge deficit of women in cybersecurity. There's a deficit that's related to it that's probably even deeper. That is women in cybersecurity who have the time to act as mentors. I know that you do when someone comes and asks, but the ability to go out and volunteer to take people on your wing, you're busy. And then you're trying to do it. And I know that I will help anybody that asks, but sometimes it's hard for me to go out and see the need and grab someone and say, come on, I'll show you the way. We definitely need more mentors that look like the individual, demographics that you want to get into cyber. Richard, I know all about you. You gave up on the tech side. I remember when you told me that you were changing roles, and I don't know. I saw the sister anxiety in your voice that you were giving up your superpowers of a sort. You were taking off your cape. You were like, I don't want to do this anymore.
That's definitely a risk. So I was chatting to Brody, and what I find is like that whole mentoring thing, it still happens. And when you get an opportunity to talk to someone, I don't want to sound old, right? But I'm getting to that stage now where I go, I've been working since 1995. So I have 20 years of experience of doing stuff, right? I still don't feel like I'm the mature one in the room, but I have been around and seen a few things. And so as you start telling stories like what happened when you went to see a customer and their Active Directory was kind of on the floor in pieces and the customer's not working anymore, and you're the one they're looking at going, fix it, please, fix it now. So I've been there and done that. And then what Brody's encouraging me to do is going to put a blog series together to try to explain how do you go from early days of any career, like including where Olivia and me have come from, how do you get from there and take a pathway that says, maybe I can do this, and you give it a go and you find out you're actually pretty good at that. And then you try something else, you go, that's terrible. I'm never going to go do that. Sales for me, just don't want to touch it, right? It's just one of those things you go and do and you learn. And do it. No, I don't want to talk about money. And so, we're going to bring out a blog post series. I'm going to talk more and more about, my real secret power is diagrams, I think. Taking an idea, taking something that's either really hard and complex, and I've learned about it, creating a very simple diagram, and then using that to try to explain it to the next person. And so this series is going to be a little bit about some examples of how I did that and transitioned. But it doesn't matter how deep and technical you are. I was never technical enough. And I was always surrounded by people who were way more technical than me. So I've always felt like the imposter or I shouldn't be here. I'm not doing what I'm doing, but someone's got to do it.
So let me do a little dust up here and throw some shade out there. Who's better at diagrams, you or Mark Simos?
Oh,
That's hilarious.
you got to hand it to Mark. Mark is. I'm going to get him on as a guest. I hope, and we'll
please.
share our approaches. But Mark has a superpower in PowerPoint. He has the black belt in that. So yeah, Mark's are incredible. If you haven't seen them, we can post a link to his stuff.
Yeah, we Mark. Shout out Mark. Come on the show.
Who was going to come on the show and then had to cancel. So you kind of owe us, Mark. Maybe,
Well, he's got his own show now, so he's probably just
He does have his own show.
Okay, that's fine. And so as we get ready to end the show and respect everybody's time, what, Richard, you out that way, right? West, you that way, right? So are you in Seattle proper? Or did I forget?
Me? No, I'm Chicago based.
In Chicago, and
the
the line of question to see that your team is dispersed. It's all over.
We're spread. Yeah, we're all over.
Okay, all right. Yeah, we are all over myself. I mean, the U.S. citizens are here, and then we have the Canadians.
Thanks for including me, eh?
Hey.
I'm still an immigrant, so I'm not even.
We knew when you said project. So.
Yes.
Oh, really? It comes out once in a while.
Project.
I started. I'm about to go reboot my router.
Yeah.
There you go. Any closing statements from anybody on here? It's been great to have you on the show, Richard. You're always a guest to come on. It answers the question of how we're getting our messaging out, because sometimes I get, to be honest and transparent, I've said sometimes, man, we're not telling our story right. How are we getting this out to people? And especially, why is the messaging not getting down to the small fry? A customer is a customer, right? So I would hope that your messaging is, not determined by the size of a customer, it's just the good in the cyber landscape. So I'm glad to now know that if I have a question about what event, what topics, maybe get a little early preview of what's the new shiny, you may be able to tell. What do you want to close the show out with? That one thing that your group does that no one may know about, and it has more impact than your day, or anything you want to close the show out with, so our listeners can bug you on LinkedIn and start friending you, so they can say,
I want to shameless plug our website for you guys to learn, anybody to learn more about what we're doing. On that page, we collect a lot of thought leadership, so like blogs that talk about specific things like MFA, but we also just call out specific features. Like, did you know that, and it's not even just features, actually, we call out teams. Like, did you know that this team is building and always trying to improve the secure development lifecycle. So I'll shout out that page. I know at some point people will listen to this without the video, so I'm gonna say the link. So it's aka.ms/built-in security. So just remember the built-in security part. That'll take you right to our webpage, and you can learn all about our team. Our Azure blog series that we were mentioning is also linked at the top of that page. There's tons of stuff there. And yeah, I'm Olivia Armstrong on LinkedIn. That's it.
Woohoo. Yeah.
Thanks, Olivia.
I mean, Olivia hit it. All I'm going to say is we exist. There is a team. There is a team here that is thinking about built-in security, secure by design, secure by default. We exist. We are here to help. And I think just getting the word out about our team for folks at Microsoft, knowing that we're here and we're here to evangelize the story and connect the story, I think that to me is a win. And that's why we're here with all of you lovely people here to kind of get our word out and let folks know that we're here to help and we're here to tell that big built-in security story for the company.
I'm going to ask you to create us a new mixtape opening for the show. See if your DJ skills are still there. Mix us some up so we can get rid of the one that Rod made.
Happy to. I'll do it with some AI.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely do it. That's a good idea. Yeah. Do it with AI, right? So, Richard, closing the show.
Thank you for inviting me back, and look forward to the next one.
There you go.
Sweet. Short and sweet.
Thanks to our listeners, supporters, and fans. We'll be back next week. Continue to guest show. We had a successful Women in Cybersecurity in March. We had MISA and RSA in April. We're in May. anything may happen. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome.
Anything
Thank you,
may
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May
Thank
the
you.
fourth be with you.
Yeah.